Hello and welcome to Back2Hoops. Today we're going to do another deep dive onto the most current defence in the UK. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jay. Say hi, Jay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jay. I'm the current head coach of Team UK.
And I'm joined by Dan.
Hi, everyone. I'm here, as last time, just to ask the questions that you might have if you're not a UK coach.
Cool, let's get into it. So today we are looking at something called a 2-2 defense. This is another type of defense that you can use. We're going to go over what the roles are for players on pitch, what it is in general, some examples of some variations because there are lots of different kinds, its strengths and weaknesses, and as always at the end, when we would choose to use it and how we might try and drill it. So, same as last time, you've got on screen now the different terminology we're going to use today. We're going to focus now on the top three. We've got our zone, our man coverage, and hybrid defense. Zone, as we said last time, is when each player is responsible for an area of the pitch. Man coverage or one-to-one defense is when we are covering an individual player. And a hybrid, which is what we're going to look at today, is when we are covering both aspects at Jay or Dan, would you like to elaborate any further on that?
Yeah, just there's a term that I'll use quite a lot, which is especially when we're talking about the hybrid defense, is called a safety or free safety. So this is a term sort of borrowed from American football, but for quidditch basically means a player that might not have a set role within a defense. Their job is to do what's the most effective thing for them within a defensive role. It might be taking a zone, it might be covering a player one-to-one, but they have a lot more freedom in the defence. For those of you that watch rugby, think of Sam Underhill. For England, he's in the defensive line, but his job is to do what's best for the defence and what works best for him.
Cool. So totally on there. Right, so what is a hybrid defense? Hybrid defense is one where some players are asked to work and operate zonally. Okay, they're responsible for an area of the pitch, whilst at the same time, other players in the defense are asked to work man-to-man in a one-to-one. And you can see how most of these kind of hybrid defenses set up, where you have three banks of two. Two chasers, two beaters, and then two more keeper chaser at the back. Okay. There are many different kinds of this, and there are lots of different positions on the pitch you can take your zone, and we're going to go through some of those today.
Can I just add?
Oh, please do.
Before we go on, just to clear up a quick misconception. A lot of the time in the UK, when we say 2-2, a lot of people refer it to the way they do it, and we're going to try and cover all of those. But when you hear the term 2-2 defense, a 2-2 zone is just sort of the base of the defense, and from that, there's lots of variations. So if someone tells you that they're playing a 2-2, or going up against a 2-2, or they want your club to play a 2-2, it's always best to ask questions about what type of 2-2 zone they're playing, because a lot of times, even at the top level, people can misinterpret the type you're playing. So 2-2 zone is the base, and then there's lots of variations to go off. So don't think that you only have to do it one way. There's lots of different ways that you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. Follow-up questions are always good, and if your coach doesn't know the answer, that's something they can go away and think about. Okay, so we're going to go for sort of the basic ideas here. If you look on screen, I've numbered the positions as well. So in the position marked number 1, you have your two chasers, the height of which can change, but generally those two chasers are higher up, and they are playing a more man-to-man, one-to-one style defense. In the middle, you've got your beaters, who are looking to absorb pressure and eventually looking to force a turnover. And then at the back, next to your hoops, you have your keeper, who is responsible normally for marking two of the hoops, generally the middle hoop and then one of the sides. And then you have your other chaser, your third chaser, who is what Jay was referring to as a safety. Sometimes they'll be in front of the hoop as a hoop defender blocking a shot. Sometimes they'll be wider, slightly more man coverage, somewhere in between. Okay, but that's your general setup. You can see it's quite similar to compact in that it is still in the middle of the pitch, not really caring about the wings. And that's, again, because that's in theory where the primary danger is as a defense team. Okay, so player roles. Those two players at the top. In the pink circle, you can see the zone of influence of the pitch that those players really kind of care about. Okay, we are assuming that the ball is on the defensive left-hand side of these two. Okay, our two chasers up top are working as a pair. They are basically going to move and man cover the ball. Okay, so if the ball moves left between those two, they'll move left. If the ball moves right, they'll move right. Trying to put the pair of them between them and the hoops, so that if the player with the ball decides to drive, they have to go through both of them. Okay, they're there to help each other out. Some variations of this, like the ones that Velociraptors use or Team UK use, have those two chasers working as a pivot, where they will push back and forth on each other, depending on which player they think has the better shot of making the defensive stop. But they still have to work as a pair. Okay, Jay, is there anything you'd like to say on that?
No, I think the main thing here is patience and making sure you stick with your defender if that's the scheme you're running. So this is really easy to get separated from. And it basically, if you're the person that isn't covering the ball carrier, your job to communicate. If you're playing help defense, which is that term we used earlier with helping someone make the defense, I'm staying a bit closer to the carrier and maybe a bit further away from the unmarked off-ball player. Or if you're going to follow that off-ball player more, it's very easy to play simple, what I call simple man-to-man or simple one-to-one, which is basically one of you marks the person with the ball and the other one marks the person without the ball. But sometimes that second player might hedge and stay a bit closer to that person with the ball, because when they pass, it's easy to adjust during the flight of the ball. So it's just about keeping that communication there. Are you both going to stay a bit closer to the person with the ball, or are you going to separate fully? Yes, you're playing better one-to-one defense on each of those players, but you're leaving a big gap down the middle and taking a bit more risk with your one-to-one tackle defense. Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just obviously the way you're saying that, the attacking players, if they switched or if they were different personnel, then you would change how you're doing that point and half as and when. Basically, every attack, it might be different people, so you might be closer together. You might be more on the obviously on the sort of unarmed, the person without the ball as well. So you'd be changing all the time. So in communication, just like, well, any defense really. Yeah,
well, yeah, for definite. You're looking to try and find your best matchups where you can, and the best. I mean, a defense is all around trying to stop a drive or stop an attack. Okay, so whatever gives you the best shot of doing that, that's what you need to try and do. The way a lot of teams in the UK run this at the moment is the person on defense who is closest to the ball out of the two chasers up top is called the point, and the player who is slightly further away, who is the help defender, we call them the half. Okay, so it's point and half, and the idea being the half can come in and help if needed. The half's job isn't just that, though. They also need to make sure that the secondary ball handler on the halfway line is covered to a degree. So that if the offense makes a quick lateral pass, they're not free on goal. Okay, so you're doubling up on the person with the ball with the half, the help defender, still keeping an eye on the square pass. Okay, that's the point in your half.
Yeah, I'd say that in this scenario, the half is definitely working a lot harder than the point usually. I find a lot of people think playing this half role is sort of when you can relax, but it's when you have to be the most aware as your defender. If you're the point, if you're the person facing down the person with the ball, play some hands up defense, be ready to make a tackle if you need to. But if you're that half, you need to be ready to either play help defense and make a tackle with the original point, or intercept a pass, or even step into that passing lane if you think you've got the agility on the person and just cut that pass straight off. So that your help defender, your half, is the person that should be working hard, and your point defender should have their main priority basically being if they can make a tackle to make it. Because as a point defender, the last thing in the world that you want is to not know if your half, your partner up top, has got you covered. So that's where that communication comes into play, and that commitment and willingness maybe to try and make a play comes in.
Okay. The next position we're going to look at is that what we've called hoop zone defender. Okay, your third chaser. As I said, this we think is the most flexible role and the role that will change the most often in a given game. Okay. For Velociraptors QC, that player generally starts each game in front of the hoop. Okay, their aim is to stop a shooting lane and aiming to stop a secondary ball handler running in and crashing the hoop. So they are staying in front of the hoop to start with. But as the game develops, as the game goes on, as the opposition sort of shows what they're all about, then that player might start to drift off the hoop, out of that blocking shoot zone, and start to try and go out and cover one of the receivers. Okay, so you can see it there. Their zone of influence, where they're looking, what they're thinking about is going to stop the shot. I'm in front of the hoop, but there's also this defender here, this attacker here rather, who might be some kind of danger. I should probably keep an eye on them, because wouldn't it be tragic if they got the ball? Okay, so that person's job has got to be switched on. They've got to be looking, where am I actually needed to make a better defensive stop? Okay, there's no point being in front of the hoop if they can't shoot, right? There's no point being out on the wing, marking that receiver if that person's never getting the ball. Okay, so they've got to make that decision. Okay, anything you'd like to contribute?
Yeah, I just think that's the free safety role for those of you that were wondering that we were talking about earlier. And the one thing I would say is this player has to have a lot of communication and a lot of trust with the keeper. And you've got to be constantly communicating about where you are. And even at the top level, you see that this communication can break down. I pride myself as a player on being quite a good communicator. But the first time we played this defense, you often find that the hoop defender, the safety, and the keeper can sometimes both go and ball hawk and try and make a interception. So it's just clear that you're both on the same page about what you're doing, and the keeper really has to trust that player to be doing what's best for the defense, so they're not second guessing themselves. So it's basically the top two are working as a team for their key communication, and the bottom two are as well. And if that communication breaks down, that's when the offense is going to try and take advantage of you.
Next up, we've got the keeper. Their job, obviously, is to block the other two hoops, make sure there's no possibility of a shot going into those two. They've then got two further responsibilities. They need to be prepared to step up if a drive does happen, to make contact earlier, to make a shot over the top harder. And they have to keep an eye on the other receiver deep. Okay. Generally, it's a good idea to have your keeper on the side of the weaker receiver. Okay, because it means they're less likely to have to go out over there and make that stop, so they can concentrate more on blocking the hoops. Okay, obviously it doesn't always work like that, but if they have a choice, if you have a setup, your keeper marking the weaker receiver going deep is better. Okay, and again, you can see their area of influence on the pitch. That stepping up point is really important. Right? You don't want to be trying to make a tackle on your own hoops. Everybody will score in that situation. Okay, you really need to be making contact off the hoop so that if they get a shot over you, it's not just a dunk into the hoop over your back. Okay, it's one of the most demoralizing goals you can see. You've hit them really hard. Oh no, they've still scored. Bugger. Okay, all good?
Yeah, sorry.
Just a quick question. Obviously, I think this is one that I've asked you before, but if both of the receivers, you don't know which one is the weaker one, would you then take it off the distributor? Would you put the keeper the side, or like if one of them was a weaker distributor, would you go that side or the opposite side? How would you?
If you're not sure on the receiver, I would, Jay might disagree, I would put the keeper on the side of the distributor. So in this instance, I've got them on the left of the hoops because the distributor is on the left, because the cross-field diagonal pass is harder. And so I think, yeah, I don't know.
So
around there, yeah.
So the way I look at it, obviously, I like to think I'm not bad at Quidditch, but I'm also fully aware that I'm not going to win a 100-metre sprint anytime soon in terms of my speed and my mobility. So if both receivers are strong, you have to basically look at what's your reaction time versus the ball. So if I think both of the receivers are quick and they've got the mark on me more than my person I'm defending with, I want to be near the receiver that's going to take the longest time to get to. So, for example, say I'm keeping and James is my hoop defender. James is going to get, regardless of what side he's on, James is going to get to the person that he needs to defend quicker than I am. So I'm going to go the side of the pass that takes the longest. I also have the advantage of being taller than James and maybe being able to make that interception. But as the keeper, if I'm slower, I want to be on the side where I'm going to get more time to try and hawk the ball and take the ball. Okay, your keeper in this scenario basically needs to be ready to play that safety role as well. Because if we see the ball go to the red X, which we've got in the circle here, the keeper isn't going to wait. It's their job to try and step out. If you're really, really worried, you've just got to make a decision. The keeper can say, I'm having X, you can have Y. And if you mess up and concede, you can try it differently next time. But in the heat of the moment, it's about committing. So it's something I say to Dan a lot. It's better to commit to a bad decision than sit there worrying about a good one. Because by the time you've mulled over your good decision, you've lost. Whereas if I commit to stepping out, I can trust my teammates to have my back and then we can try and riff it from there. But the time that I've spent waiting and wondering is the time that I'm going to get punished, is what I'd say.
Yeah, cool.
Right. Beaters, I'm not going to spend as much time on in this section just because it is the most varied in terms of tactical choice you can make with it. We'll look at these in some videos in a sec about where you might set your beaters, but in general, they're looking to absorb pressure and then create a turnover, either through forcing an offensive play that isn't the right choice, or by winning a beat engagement and pressing out, or just cleaning up when a stop gets made. Okay, but essentially they are looking to work together as a pair, push and pull on defense, draw them in, and then look to make a turnover. Okay, and we're going to see some examples of that in a sec. Okay, but the communication between them two is also important. What you don't want is your point and half and your two beaters super high up, leaving loads of space in behind if they've got a really good passing distributor and really good receivers. Okay. Conversely, you don't want to be sat really far deep if they're good at other aspects of the game. Okay, so you need to balance it out across. Okay, no tactic is perfect. Nothing will work against every opposition. You do need to be able to balance it and change it up as needed. Okay. Right. This is the first example we're going to. So this is what I would consider a generic example of the UK version of a 2-2 defense. This comes from the QPL Championship this summer, with Archers on the left and Pride on the right. Okay, so in the video you can see we've got our 3 banks of 2. We've got a point and a half looking at the ball. We've got our 2 beaters on the keeper's own line, and then we've got a keeper and another chaser sat further back. Okay, let's watch it through. Okay, you can see where they're looking, where their zone of influence is, what they're looking to do. It is annoyingly going to cut to the seeker, because why not, despite it not being a swim game. There we go again. So you've still got it. At this point, Lucy, our the beater, has exchanged with her beater and is now, which was here, and has now come up with the ball. Dan, her partner, has noticed that that's happening and is about to make its play. So it actually forces the turnover there because their beaters press out, and off we go. Skip through, see the next one. And we're going to see the same lovely replay of our goal. Okay. And we see essentially the same play again. Okay, same play again. Still got our 3 banks of 2. And you've still got your 2 chasers looking at the ball, looking to stop that one drive. Beaters again are ready and trying to exchange, and our 2 chasers back. Our beaters have seen that they can press because the opposition beaters are out of position. and obviously change it over, technology, and are able to make a turnover and a goal, which is what happens, okay? So that's our generic, I would consider, setup. Okay, the one that looks the most like this diagram. Chasers set up just inside their own half, beaters set on keeper's own line, keeping stuff further back, okay? So if you hear 2-2 as a defensive setup, I would suggest that that is what you will see more often than not, okay? There are, however, some variations, okay? This is what I would call a hyper-aggressive style of 2-2 defense, okay? So you're still starting with those 3 banks of 2, but you think your beaters have got, and your chasers are much stronger than the opposition's, or you're losing by a lot, and you need to make something happen, okay? So here we are really trying to force a turnover by putting the beater pressure and chaser pressure on much earlier in the pitch. See if this works. Cool. So, purple's got the ball and advance, and immediately you can see there's a point defender ready for them. We'll stop it in a sec. So, purple keeper's walking up, walking up, walking up. Okay, and you have it there. Okay. The keeper is met by 2 chasers essentially before he's even crossed over halfway, and the beaters are ready to make a play on this, with Lucy just in front of the keeper, and I believe it's Dantrick to the right. You then have at the back, keeper and hoop zone looking to pick off any passes that get made going long. Okay, but you can see by putting the pressure on so much earlier, the keeper's not really sure what they can do, even though they're protected by an armed beater. Okay.
So with this one, it's slightly different because the point and a half have gone over to where the ball is, but the beater, is that right, is basically covering the sideways pass as well.
The beater, the second beater has gone even more aggressive, has gone to, instead, the beater has gone to be the help defender essentially. They've gone to go be the half. They've gone, we're going to 2 up on this one chaser, and the beater is going to push and cover any other pass that can be made. Okay, because they're looking to force a turnover way more aggressively. Okay, this one's trying to force a mistake.
Not a nice feeling to be that keeper.
Really
with the ball
not. I'm really glad I was on the red team, if I'm honest. They're trying to force a mistake rather than waiting for a mistake, which is what the other defense is trying to do. Okay, force turnover, intercept, and it's a breakaway goal. And you can see, I need to stop clicking. Sorry. You can see that all the attackers are ready to run. Okay, they're all looking to break, and all of them, we've got the stop here, turnover, break, everyone starts running, they all flood, they all run the fast break, and it's the easiest one-pass goal you'll see. Okay, because they were ready to, and that's what they were looking to do. And they go back to it again, same thing, exactly the same. 2-point defenders, point and a half, up high on the keeper, daring him to cross the halfway line. Beaters both set, ready to press out, even though they haven't actually created a no-bludger situation yet. And again, the back 2 ready to pick off any passes. Beater coverage, they're looking. Here comes the pincer. The half is there to make a stop, turnover, and you don't need to see us run in another goal. Okay, but that pressure early meant that the keeper had to throw it long, and the keeper and the half and the hoop zone are there ready to make an intercept. Okay, but that only worked. They could only commit that high because they thought they had the beating of the opposition. Okay. The last one I'm going to look at is essentially the polar opposite. Okay, this is what would be called a cavalry wall. Okay, set up by Texas Cavalry, a US team. Okay, and this is what I would consider the most conservative version of this defense. Okay, if it works. Yeah. Okay. On this one. Okay. There you see the point and a half again on the blue team. They started a bit high and they're now sinking back, and they're going to keep doing that. and keep doing that and keep doing that and going all the way back until essentially they're on their keeper zone line. Okay. You can then see that the beaters on the blue team, on Texas Cavalry, have dropped even further back. They're now well within their own keeper zone. And then you've got your last two, your keeper and your hoop defender, properly on the hoops. And essentially they're playing the game of, can you break this down? Can you do anything to attack this 2-2 zone? What are you going to do to get through all of these bodies, all of these people, and our beaters on the hoop? Okay, and they are just literally waiting, shifting across, hands up in the face, waiting for a mistake to happen, waiting for them to overcommit. Okay. So there you actually see the beater on the hoop as well. Right. Ooh, could press out, not going to, it's not worth the committing, just going to wait, nice and patient. Banks of two, you have to break this down somehow. What are you going to do? Okay. And eventually, we actually get a delay of game warning, and the press, you can see it there, number 10 beaters going, what are you doing? You're wasting time, you're just passing it back and forth, which then forces some action, allows us to create a turnover and a goal. Okay, so those are your three kind of styles, I would suggest, your three tempos or almost of this tactic. Okay. Your normal, your baseline, hyper aggressive on halfway, super conservative on your own hoops. Okay. All three have merit, all three can be used at different times, and you might see that you change that within a game, but that's what you're looking to do. Okay, Jay, anything you'd like to add on to that?
No, I just think if you're a team that decides that you're going to take this up, it's just good to establish how aggressive you're going to be, and if this defense is for you. So because of our wonderful ability to present, we can make it look very straightforward, but this can be quite difficult to do in a game, especially getting the communication between each position and sort of what you're trying to do. Even top tier teams, when they're trying to refine their defense, can find that there's hurdles. So I'd say if you are a new team watching this, trying to start out, give it a go. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, feel free to, if we're still about, message one of us or talk to someone who you think might have the answer. But I think it's, even if you're changing how you do it throughout a game, within your defensive set, you just need to know how aggressive you're going to be. And if that aggression is going to change or come back a bit, everyone needs to know. The last thing I will say on this is you actually do have to look like you're playing defense. So that hands up, athletic stance, balls of your feet, actual moving. Because if it's four of you standing in a box, you're just going to get ripped to shreds like you would if you watched our compact video when we said if you're not playing defense properly, then someone's just going to carve straight through you. So this defense definitely requires a lot of trust. But if you execute it well, it's really, really good for getting those interceptions, getting those stops, and hopefully turning that into a counter-attack.
We are actually going to look at an example of where it goes wrong. Now, meaning no disrespect to the teams in play, I just think one player isn't paying as much attention as they could do, and that creates what I think should have been a goal. Okay. The joys of embedded technology. Okay. So this is from the same game as we've watched earlier, same tournament rather. This is QPL. This is Scotland versus, I believe, Paris. Is that right, Jay?
Yeah, it looks like Paris is.
Okay. Right. And so you can see that Scotland have set up in their 2-2 as well. Okay. One beater's gone slightly hard just to try and ward it off. So you've still got your banks of 2 chasers, beaters, 2 chasers. Where this goes wrong is the half defender, the help defender, isn't paying enough attention, hasn't been told which player they should be worried about. Okay.
And that's the one on the far side, yeah?
That's the one on the far side, yeah, with their hand up. So the one, the male chaser in the red circle, just outside the keeper zone line, and then hasn't tracked which of the 2 players on his side is the one who should be following. Okay. Technology. Please just work. I'd say I'd edit out, but I don't have those skills.
It's all about the raw footage.
The raw footage,
Even
indeed.
the greats make mistakes.
Exactly. Hey, this team's very good. They made a mistake. We've made a mistake. Okay. So if I show you here, okay. They haven't picked up.
Would you not want your half to be a bit further back so they can actually help if the drive happened there?
I would like them to be a bit further back. I'd like them to be a bit closer as well. But that would also let them see more of the pitch, because I genuinely don't think they see the player with the hand up. And so they literally just
two
run.
of them over there, isn't it?
There's two. Haven't picked up either of them, not doing anything. They run in and nothing actually comes of it. Okay? They're just not picking up at all.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those scenarios where we were saying it's communication from everyone of who's marking who. So there's a point, as James pointed out, where there's two receivers on the right side of the field and one player trying to mark both, and they succeed in marking neither of them. And that happens to everyone. Like you're going to fall asleep at some point in a game. But that's where the keeper, especially if your keeper's going to be your main communicator, needs to be saying, gang, we need to get ourselves into gear here. You're marking this person, you're marking this person, or I think you should pick up this person. Because the last thing you want from your team is someone leaving their defensive assignment to try and compensate for someone else not doing theirs. It's like we were saying in our last video. The last thing I want as a defender is to think that someone else isn't going to do their job, so I have to go and help them do it. And that's basically, neither of those has happened here. The attack hasn't seen the very obvious passing option, I think mainly due to a lack of mobility from it. But the defense, like we were saying earlier, is stuck in that, let's stand here and hope they make a mistake. Defense is all about forcing the other team to make mistakes, but they're only going to make mistakes if you do something to cause them. They're not going to they shouldn't make mistakes on their own. Some teams give that a bloody good go, but you need to be doing something to put some pressure on them or force them to make a mistake. Okay, if you stop a goal through the other team's incompetence, that isn't good defense. That's just you being quite lucky. All right, as a defense, you need to be looking to turn the other team over. What are you doing to apply pressure to make the other team make a mistake or cough the ball up?
So you can see the player has actually got past the defender, and admittedly they don't score off this, but it really should have just gone to him to shoot. Yeah, okay. So, strengths and weaknesses. We've talked about this. It's very similar to before. This is very good against a head-on offense, okay? There really isn't a driving lane. The top two players are very well covered, very well marshaled, which means it has to go either wide or deep. And the idea being, if it has to go deep, those players are covered and there's enough time for the whole defense to react. Okay, it's very easy if the ball goes deep for the keeper of the hoop zone to step out and for the point and half to just drop back in, and you've essentially just pushed the whole thing from here to here. Okay, it's very good in that middle third of the pitch. Okay. Also, it's very good at trying to create a press out situation. If your beaters are good, if they can win their fight, if they can win their exchange, they can go and explode out in any direction really quite easily and quite securely and force a turnover, get the ball, get the quaffle, and you can go and counter, as we saw in our hyper-aggressive video. Okay, as I say, it does cover three players, I think, pretty well. Okay, anyone want to add anything on the strengths of this? That aren't on screen.
Something I will say is if an offense is stalled, by stalled we mean it's lost momentum and it's going nowhere. If this defense is being played well, it's really, really difficult to restart a stalled offense, especially at maybe a less advanced level of play or a Merc tournament. If your offense is stalled out and you've slowed down, especially as a ball carrier, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of communication and a lot of work to get some momentum back into your offense, because this defense shuts it down quite easily, I'd find. Whereas with compact, you're basically free to do what you fancy and get some
until
momentum
you're ready.
going. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So one question that just sort of came up. It doesn't link directly to the strengths. If obviously the attacking beaters beat out, say, your point chaser, who fills in? How does that sort of move around?
So the half, if the point chaser gets beat out, the half is already there to cover. In a lot of versions of this, especially the version that we run personally, when our point defender and our beaters are quite close together in terms of spacing. So if the opposition makes a tap beat on our point defender, our beater is then looking to force a bludger turnover by throwing then, because their information is distracted. So our half would go and cover the space, and our beater would look to try and reclaim that bludger. Okay, you've naturally got someone in that position kind of ready. You don't need to send up a keeper on a normal rotation up to halfway line to go cover. Okay.
So, and I imagine if then the attacking beater beat out the point, then that exchange happens. It's a turnover, and you're on a fast break with what was the half.
Yeah, it's one-on-one, and you have a beater.
Then the beaters are going to stop beating out your point defender because
they can't afford the turnover.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
You win. You essentially try and win either way. You either get the beater out and you get turnover, or you don't get beat out on point and you've still got your players all in the way. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Now, no defense is perfect, as we said. Okay. This does have some weaknesses, especially if the team on offense are good at moving with the ball and moving the ball around. Okay, it is quite susceptible to a fast, flat pass and a fast cut square of the hoops. Okay, the kind of cut you can see on the yellow line in front. So either the ball goes along the yellow line, or the runner takes the yellow line, because that naturally turns all of the defenders round into a bit of a line, which is they're defending a much smaller space, allowing any of the other players on offense a lot more freedom, a lot more time to build up momentum, because there's more space between them and the nearest defender. And it is very hard to stop someone who has momentum. Okay. That is its main, I would suggest, weakness. Or if you are very good at moving the ball from the top to the back in an L and round out, if you can make a U shape with your passing fast and make it look like every player who receives it is a threat and could score, that can pull a defense like this out and out of space. Okay. If the ball speed is slow, then it's really easy to adapt to. If you're not worried about each of the players being a threat of scoring, you have more time to adapt again. Okay. But that is something at a high level that can pull this defense apart. Jay?
Yeah, I think it's something that's quite uncommon in the UK for our huge US audience that's definitely watching. Is to see a ball carrier take the ball all the way to that side of the hoops, because people think when they've got the ball they should have an instant chance of scoring. But if you take the quaffle to where that L starts, the bend of the L there, it really forces the defense to react, because no decision they make is going to be the right one in this scenario. So that's where you want the ball to be. And then if you've got a hoop facing player, so someone who's literally looking at the hoops, running at pace, if you can just flick them the ball with a bit of pace on it, it gives them a really, really good chance of scoring. So if you are a new team that's watching this, ball speed's really something that you need to be prioritising. Getting the ball and moving it quickly is going to make the defence's life a lot harder, regardless of what they're playing.
It's almost like we've planned this out, because our next video is actually going to be on throwing speed, throwing technique, throwing ball, to increase your ball speed.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought? It's all up here. But unfortunately, that means I sacrificed the technical skills to play a YouTube video. Sorry. Kind of everything. Cool. So this is kind of going to be our last little section on this. How you want to play this, when you want to play it, and how you're going to drill it. Okay, this is the current, I would suggest, meta defense for the top teams in the UK. Okay, pretty much all of the teams that are looking at meddling EQC, challenging for Dev 1 spots at EQC and EQT, they are playing some variation of this defense. You have Raptors playing it like we saw in the video with Archers. You've got teams like LQC who are playing it slightly more conservatively. And you've got teams like Unspeakables who are looking with their half to be slightly wider and looking to press that lateral secondary receiver quickly. Okay, but they're all working off the same essential blueprint and then riffing on it to suit the skill set of their players. Okay, which is what good teams do. They go, this is a good idea. How can I make it better to suit the people that I have? You know, if your football team doesn't have Ronaldo on it, there's no point playing as if it does. Okay. So it also plays into the UK's inherent weakness of not being a particularly shoot-heavy or pass-heavy country. We are still quite drive-heavy. Okay, so this defense plays into those strengths, essentially. Why play a defense that's not suited to purpose? Okay. In terms of how to drill it, points 2, 3, and 4 on screen kind of run through how I would look to do it, right? And it's quite straightforward. I would start by discussing with my team what the aim is. Are we looking to force a turnover high? Are we looking to absorb pressure? Okay, you don't want people playing on different wavelengths. Once you've done that, then you can put them into position on pitch and just walk through a likely offense, okay? So move the ball left and right at the top of the formation at halfway and get the player and point and half used to changing position, used to changing priority, used to changing facing, okay? Get that bit first. Start with your front. That's the first part of the defense. That's the part of the defense that's going to get tested in a game the most often because it's the part that faces the opposition earliest. Okay. Once they've got that spacing right, once they've got that timing right, then you can start moving in other players. Okay. Putting the ball around different parts of the pitch, getting used to shifting everybody. So if the ball goes left, like deep left, where am I going? If it goes deep right, what am I doing? Whose priority is it? Where's everybody else filling in our spacing? Now we can add in beaters. Okay, once you've got your chasers in position, your beaters can now try and enact their plan. Where are they set up? Are they looking to absorb at their hoops? Essentially, trade fights, tap back in and pick up and go. Are they looking to go aggressive early, throwing first, forcing a turnover higher up? Okay, build them in, and you can start to build up the speed as you're doing this. Okay, so you might start off at walking pace and talking it, starting to go to jog, and then you're actually getting into a more half-court practice situation. Okay, and you build that up until you're actually playing it in a game. When you're playing scrims with your team, from that point on, if that's been the focus of you in the morning, your afternoon feedback as a coach needs to be about this. Who is doing the right idea, who is playing the defense well, and is practicing and applying what they've learned earlier. Okay, there's no point spending hours practicing this if the second you play a game, you go, whatever, I'm gonna do what I want. Okay, practice really, it makes permanent, not perfect, but you want this to be permanent, right? You need them to know this. Okay, so start slow, start with the basics, most common examples that you're going to face, and then you can start to build up your niche ideas, okay? Don't start with the niche stuff straight away.
In the last video, we were saying that everyone needs to be able to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Does this have that same thing? Obviously, everyone needs to be able to play every part, or would you end up maybe having? I think
it's less important in this than it is in a compact defense for everyone to know everything. I mean, it's always helpful if you can have everyone know everything. That is definitely better. I would suggest your top two, your point and your half, are probably going to be the same people more often than not. Okay. The change-up might become your keeper stepping up. Okay, if you're getting really close to your keeper's own line, they might become the new point defender because they can't be beat out, and that immunity is really important. But you're changing up positions a lot less often, I would suggest, and you're not rotating rounds as often. Okay, so your hoop zone defender is unlikely to find themselves at halfway. Yeah, they might be the point defender behind the hoops if the ball goes deep, but that's still a slightly different role. They still need to know that that was their hoop zone going to that position rather than it being a different role entirely. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Wonderful. Okay. And here is our summary of what we would do. Okay. That's what we're going to leave the video today. Thank you very much for sticking with us. What we're going to do is this will go up on social media, onto YouTube and onto Facebook first, and then we will do a short 10-minute quick look video like we did last time to give you kind of the nuts and bolts, just a very quick summary of it. We hope you really enjoyed this. Dan, you can sign off with what you want to say about YouTube. You said it. Trash, Dan. You can like and subscribe, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
God damn it, Dan.
Oh.
Take care. See you all soon. Bye.